since then has invited and has attracted a number of people. And today I thought this would be a good time to really know, are we achieving the objectives of setting that up? Are we, there's something more we can do to it? And frankly, to get to know from you all, since you have been with you have already gone to the place, as to what more can be done or what you liked most in that place. So let me just start off from there itself. Sarthak, I don't have to really say much about it, but all that I can say about Dr. Jitender Aggarwal, who's the founder CEO, that his vision is better than any one of us, at least mine definitely, because he's the one who finally dreamt of this, and he made a statement in the KBC. I don't know if you have seen some of those episodes where in front of Amitabh Bachchan, he was mentioning how we're going to set up a global resource center. And this was just before COVID. Work carried on during COVID, and today the building is up and running. So all kudos to him. Now, in order to start this, I'd first bring in, there are three speakers today, but I will introduce each one as we go along. And when I ask a question, then that's when I'll give a small introduction about the speaker itself. I've got a language interpreter, and we are live on YouTube also. So first, I'd like to welcome Vishwas Vishnoi from Big Basket, has 5 years of experience as senior training manager, and he has over 17 years of expertise in e-commerce, Q-commerce, online retail, and hospitality. He's dedicated to self-development in order to provide expectations exceeding service. So Vishwas, I just want to know, how was your visit to the Sarthak Global Resource Center, and what had you expected and what you intend doing with that experience? So tell us all about it. The floor is yours now.
Thank you, Arunji. Thank you for this opportunity. And we have visited, I guess, last month, and the visit was fantastic. So we have experienced that dark room activity for almost 30 minutes, and that was fantastic. Where we experienced how people without eyesight feel and what challenges they are facing. Right. So we also interact some of these students at the institution, and they have some queries and answers, and then we love to interact with them. And also we find out some of the tools which these people are using, and how can their life these tools are making easy. So this was fantastic, and we learn a lot. During that 1 hour visit in the institution.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just trying to gauge from what your expectations were, and maybe what you'd like to do further in terms of, let's say, I mean, the people with disabilities are someone we would like to place more and more in corporates. Yeah, so they need to be educated, they need to be trained.
Right,
I don't know if you have seen one of them from Big Basket, one of the trainees who came on KBC itself. Did you see that particular video?
The name of girl is Rakhi.
Yeah, Rakhi. Yes, very much.
Yes, and I was a part of her training session when in 2019 she joined, and so she was from the first batch when we started this program in Big Basket, and right now we have near about 5 to 6% of especially able people. I'm so sorry, there is a power cut here. And so, but we are increasing that. Our managers are trained on sign languages. Okay, we are continuously training, also taking their sessions on sign languages and how to deal and face challenges during communication with these guys. So yes, we are very much committed to increase the numbers in the organization, right?
Okay. So, I mean, just to add to that, you are from the training world. We have now started something called a Gyan Sarthi, which is catering to people with disabilities, and that might work well for your people also. And the
Right.
whole idea is it's an AI assisted kind of a module where
Right.
people with disabilities can also work on it. So there's no separate program or separate software you require to train them. It can work both for your regular employees and people with disabilities. The whole idea is equal opportunity to learn for everyone. Yeah, and
Right. Right.
that's something you may like to carry for with you for the for your next induction program itself. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Vishwas. And I now move to Shiv. Shiv, how about your experience at the Global Resource Center? And just to introduce you, Shiv Devan represent Aflatun International in India. Their focus is on social and financial education. One of their goals over time is to make curriculums inclusive. At a personal level, he has integrated relevant themes within a course that he teaches at a few of India's best business schools, especially on the intersection of startups and social justice. So, Shiv, first I'd like to know more about Daflatoon and what your introduction gets me very intrigued and curious to know what you do with people with disabilities. And then I'd like to know about your experience at the Global Resource Center.
Well, Mr. Bhatnagar and members of the Sarthak team, thank you for having me at this session. Very quickly, Aflatun focuses on social and financial education, particularly for vulnerable youth. And we do that through partnerships across the world. We now have about 300 partners in about 70 different countries, and lots of those are governments as well. And I know that the team has announced the desire to be able to try and make sure that this material caters to a disabled audience as well. I'll be honest, I'm a newbie when it comes to trying to understand this world, but I do know that the numbers are scary. From whatever little I know, it's like 1 out of 5 people in the world have a disability. And the faster all of us get our act together to realize that and integrate in the mainstream, I think we'll get superb talent in the whole model. Your second question, with your permission, Mr. Bhatnagar, would be my experience at the Global Resource Center. May I move to that, or would you like me to go a little bit deeper on your earlier question?
You can move to that and bring in what you learn from there and what you do, how the two can be integrated. That's also
Sure.
an objective for the future.
Okay. So the other thing that I'll mention is that when I actually visited the center, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know that they all had moved over there. It was a really pleasant experience for me to go through that. More than anything, I think the one thing that I really took away from there was Sarthak's approach to the entire, to the entire ecosystem. Like from what I understand, there are 21 major disabilities that get catered to right in the beginning. So the things like one is, of course, what Vishwas spoke about, which was, say, the vision in the dark room. But what really stuck out to me was there was a small space over there for a new parent, a parent who's got a lovely baby in the world, and suddenly the world got turned upside down because your child is disabled, and it could happen to almost anyone. You mentioned and you alluded to it briefly about how they've Sarthak has gone out there and built accessible tools to ensure that children are able to study, to ensure that young people are able to get into the job market, to make sure that they're able to go and become entrepreneurial. And as I moved across the center, it was a pleasure to see the spaces where lots of those things were coming alive. So I honestly hope, and all power to the Sarthak team, that you all open more of these centers in different parts, because I think for any organization, individual, or family, and possibly government as well, who is starting to engage with this and are saying, okay, we want to make something a little more inclusive, I would put a visit to the Sarthak Global Resource Center as first stop point for you to come in over there as well. The other bits that in particular, which stood out for me, the gentleman who hosted me, and I get the name wrong every time, and Deepika will probably ask me, last time I mentioned the wrong names, I won't risk it there. Was the way he had been sensitized to take us through the whole thing, right? I got my first experience in playing cricket when you can't see something. Of course, I missed the ball every single time it came near me. The experience of watching what a video is experienced like when someone doesn't have that. And going forward from there, I did a little more digging to understand what it would really take, right? Like just a simple thing like opening something on a website, we all take it for granted, right? But is the document being read out in a way where I know that there's a logo? Is it if I have a color sensitive issue, is my document responding to someone like that? I may not be able to click very well on my mouse, and how does it work? So I found that whole afternoon really, really educative, and it showed me there's a lot of work to be done, but it also got me excited about the fact that I think a lot of organizations could do it, and it's not going to be so hard. And as a result, you just make it more equal for those 1 out of 5 folks. Sorry, Mr. Bhatnagar, I hope I didn't go too far off, but back to you now.
Well, thank you very much, Shiv. Yeah, really, those points will be taken up by us. Definitely, we would like to now, let's say, popularize or reach out to as many people as possible. And you people hopefully will be the brand ambassadors, so-called, to go out and talk more about this Vision in the Dark and Ability Museum, which can change the lives of many a PWD. And well, I won't say it's 1 in 5, but the World Health Organization's figures are like 15% of the world population has a disability. So if you're talking of 7 billion people, then nearly 1 billion people have a disability. Now that's a lot of people around the place. So, and India itself, there's been no census done. The last census was in 2012, and that time only 7 disabilities were defined. And that time the number was around 27 million. But since then, it's gone past more than 100 million. That's the Indian number. But still, it's whatever we said about which disability, but we have to find something which can lead them to give you to be part of the workforce, really. I mean, that's a hidden GDP, I would say. We can, because what we have seen, especially in another company like Lemon Tree's example is cited most often, that their people with disabilities are nearly 20% of the workforce. They are finding that in housekeeping, a person with disability does some 21 rooms, whereas a person so-called with no disabilities does only 18 rooms. And they are more loyal, they are more hardworking, they don't skip jobs because somebody is giving them $1,000 extra. They're not into WhatsApp and coffee break talks, etc., and gossips. So there are a number of other things which highlight their, let's say, presence in the organization. And work from home has also become a very nice, let's say, a silver lining for people with disabilities, because now I've had some HR people contact me and say, look, we are looking to make jobs where they can really work from home. I mean, why give that kind of a job to a person without disability when a person with disability can do it from home? Till now the fear was, I'll have to alter the premises, I have to put in a ramp and do 5 other things, etc. And that costs a lot of money, and who's going to do it? And plus, who's going to provide transports, etc. But now there's so many pieces of work that can be done from home. So there are job roles being devised for which will suit people with disabilities. And I think that's the world moving to. And let's see what ChatGPT can give to that as a push forward. Yeah. Okay, let me come to Sangeeta. Sangeeta Robertson.
Mr. Bhatnagar, no, sorry,
Yeah.
I was just going to respond to something you said, but I'm happy to do it after Sangeeta then.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Because I'm having one round together, then of course I have to let Vishwas go because he's got another engagement. But it'd be nice to have Sangeeta's point of view also. Sangeeta is the Chief Sustainability Officer for PBR Inox Limited, and is leading the ESG initiatives across each aspect in the life cycle of cinema operations. She has created the blueprint for inclusive entertainment in the country with specific focus on PWDs by addressing infrastructure constraints and use of enabling technologies. She has also been actively involved in influencing policy in favor of creating accessible content for Indian cinema and digital content accessibility as per WCAG 2.1. across education and employability sector. She has consulting experience with companies like IBM, Tata Group, and Cummins. So, Sangeeta, I mean, you are a brand ambassador, let's say, for people with disabilities themselves. What did you feel when you reached this place, the Global Resource Center? And we would like to know what your views were, both in terms of your own as a person and as a representative of a corporate and having so much experience in dealing with issues with people with disabilities. So, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Atulji. For the others who don't know, I myself have a disability. I have a 17-inch shortening of one leg and I wear an artificial leg. However, I was brought up to concentrate on everything else but the disability. And I think that's what worked for me. My association with Sarthak has been, it goes back to 2010 when I was with the Tata Group. And I was absolutely amazed at seeing the center. Well, I knew it was coming up, and because I was at the event that Dr. Aggarwal had announced the inception, but I had ideas of what it would be, but definitely Sarthak surpassed my expectations. It was a beautiful experience. I took the head of the person who leads training, as well as the person who looks at hiring for North India, because he sits here. So I thought it should be an inclusive, because I know the space, but the people who need to be able to hire people with disabilities need to get more comfortable with that space as well. So yes, I think Dr. Aggarwal and his team have thought about just about everything in terms of equipping, enabling people with various kinds of disabilities. And having said that, I will not repeat what the other two speakers have spoken about, because I also went through the same journey. I also interacted with a few of the people who were there getting trained and saying, and this is something that has come back to me recurringly, because I have also been counseling parents who have children with disabilities and so on and so forth. Because I think now I'm thinking of what next. Because as far as the resource center is concerned, it's absolutely state of the art. I'm thinking of what next, and I think what is missing in India from the perspective of people with disabilities and how their families deal with disability, how society deals with disability, we keep othering them. And the only reason that, like I said, what worked in my favor, and I'll talk from the personal experience, that, the disability is here. Whether it's the person who has the disability, or the person who's viewing a person with disability. So from that angle, and it all starts with the person with the disability, because if that person, and that's something I've lived. So when I walk into a room, yes, the first reaction could be that people notice that I have a limp, but it ends there. However, the first time this thought struck me was when I was interviewing for ESPs, the cinema staff, and I had specifically asked for people not beyond standard 12. And this person comes in with a degree in mass communication, from a master's in mass communication from Banaras Hindu University. I'm a postgraduate in mass communication myself from Punjab University, and I think BHU gets rated higher than anything. And this boy comes in with a degree in a master's in mass communication for an ESP's job. And I ask him, tell me about yourself, and he starts talking about his disability. I stop him, I tell him, tell me about your experience and your qualifications. He talks 2 lines and goes back to the disability. So I said, hold it now. Tell me, what is the shortening of your leg? He says 2.5 inches, 2.5, which can be actually corrected just with a extra heel. So I told him, I said, I have a 17.5-inch shortening. He didn't understand, it didn't register. Till I asked him to stop and walked across. So what I'm trying to say is that in addition to creating enablers for people with disabilities and all that GBC has been able to do, the center, I think the next step has to be able to address the handicap here. And I deliberately use the word handicap. I usually don't, but that is what remains. And that is something that that across the country we've not been. I mean, you look at, there was this person, if you read the papers, a triple amputee who went to base camp of Everest just 2 days back. So we need more role models like this to be able to overcome the disability here.
Well said. Well said. Very well said. I'm glad that's been, I mean, you brought that out, because otherwise, there are some, unfortunately, there are people who try and make use of the disability to get, I would say, favors in terms of getting a job, etc. But I think it may work in the short run, but it'll definitely not work.
Yeah, so I told the kids there, I said, listen, this should be your last option. You've been trained, you've been equipped, go from the front door. The disability certificate should be your last option, not the first option.
Right. Very true. Okay, let me just go back to Vishwas, and after this we'll let you go also. But I had this question for you. I mean, I used to hear some of your competitors were planning to extend the delivery of, let's say, goods through, especially in tier 2, tier 3 towns, to people with disabilities by giving them special vehicles like a tricycle kind of a thing. I mean, motorized, of course. And the reason I got interested in that is because in India, 75% of people with disabilities are in the rural areas. Let's say not in the urban areas, let's say. Now, how do we get them employment? Because there aren't very many industries, or there are not many corporates in that area. So we do need to find, let's say, avenues where they can do a good job. And I was hearing that there was one of the quick commerce companies were going to provide those kind of vehicles to them, whether it's electric bike or to carry goods across, that way. And why in tier 2, tier 3? Because they expect that the traffic is much less compared to the kind of stuff that happens in main metros. So the risk for accidents, etc., goes down. So any thoughts on that? What are you looking at? Because you've got space all over the place. I mean, you are now all India, pan India, let's say. So what can you do in places outside the urban areas?
So, Atulji, to be very honest, our presence is right now in T1 and T2 cities only. We haven't moved to T4 and T3 cities. So we never thought about it. When we will move to T3 cities, then definitely we will work on this area as well. And we'll look for the providers. How can we onboard these candidates and go in this area? So right now we are only in T1 and T2 cities.
I see. But anyway, I mean, this is just a thought for the future, because we also have to work on how we can't change the demographics of India. I mean, the way what it is, it is. And how do we best make use of the infrastructure that's developing and all the new things that have come up? I mean, Q-commerce is something new, and I read in your bio that you are an expert there. So that's something, a food for thought for you to take
Absolutely,
away.
absolutely. I'll take this thought and also put across to the management that how can we go forward and look forward it in the coming future, right?
That'll be great. That'll be great.
Right.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you so much. I mean, you can carry on if you want to, or you want to carry on with the discussion. It'll be great. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, Shiv, I'm still am not. I'm a little curious about. I know you're a newbie for your. I mean, you recently joined the company, or
No, I've been with Aflatun and been working in the question of school to work for the last 15 years, with Aflatun for about a year and a half now.
okay,
But the question of non-profit work for me has been about four and a half only.
okay. So when you said about this financial and social education, etc., now that can come out very useful because another area where people with disabilities can really make a mark is in entrepreneurship itself, and especially in the as I said, in the semi-urban areas or in the rural areas, because every person will employ more and more people. And in order to become an entrepreneur, other than having a bright idea about it, but you also need to be, let's say, financially savvy. So, how can things be worked out in your curriculum, which can help such people, first of all, do self-assessment of what they are wanting to achieve, how they can do something. But are there softwares like, okay, you plug in a few things and get to know how your idea will work or not work? How do you find the market size? How do you find your profit and loss, or anything which just makes it financially viable, or to get to know whether it's financially viable or not? So I'm just curious, are there any curriculums like that that can be plugged into some of the training programs that we have?
So, Atul, quick response on that one. I'll only share with you a few experiences that I've had in this. Like, for example, there's an organization in Chennai called Sarthak. There's an organization in Chennai which makes clothing for people with disabilities. And one of the two founders has a disability as well. One, of course, is the fashion design graduate in that couple. But what I liked over there was they say that for every entrepreneur, a starting point is a pain point. And what is the solution that you're trying to provide to a particular audience? So in this particular case, for example, she's invented a nighty sari. She calls it a nighty sari, and she says, look, there are lots of pleats. People find it hard enough when they're completely able-bodied to wear that. She's asked people that send the sari across to me. She'll kind of get it ready-made where those pleats are in place, and you can almost slip it on top, right? And she's been able to create like a niche market in itself. So my response to you on that one is, if you look at that application and you look at ways to in terms of applying it in different places, from any interest area you can create an opportunity. You were talking about tier 3 and 4. In for the course that I've been teaching at business school, one of the things that I want, you spoke about it, that this GDP which is hidden over there. When it comes to something like, say, food, there are lots of restaurants which have been created by folks with disability, which also cater to people who have them. If a person's interest is tech, there are lots of tech-based solutions which are being leveraged by audiences within that. And one of the really nice things that I heard from one of the entrepreneurs over there also was that you shouldn't look at the people with disability as a separate audience. Your products can speak to both. So, for example, Procter & Gamble did a small, simple thing by putting in 3 notches on 2 bottles of shampoo and conditioner, whereby someone who's in the bathroom doesn't want to come outside to ask someone which is shampoo and conditioner. So a small shift on an existing product can suddenly allow it to cater completely to an audience in that sense. So my limited point on that is, for anyone who's looking towards entrepreneurship when they are disabled, or anyone who's in entrepreneurship and providing services to people who are disabled, take an inclusive approach to it and say, okay, it's like another group. It's possibly the fastest growing minority, and make sure that your communication is inclusive. All of those pieces go out there as well. Your response on, are there specific courses? I know this because I've worked with a couple of private schools to try and work with students who've had disabilities in that. It's very hard to find colleges and so on which will cater to it that way. And I think that was the point Sangeeta was making earlier in this conversation as well, that it almost needs to become 2 ways. One is you're creating something for someone who's disabled, but for the so-called folks who have ability also, we also need to be educated, and that almost needs to become mainstream in all pieces of the curriculum. One last example I'll share. You spoke about Lemon Tree. Like I reached out to Human Resource to understand how they were doing this process over there. I believe they've put it into the way people are assessed. So at the end of, they've actually put money behind it. So if I, for example, don't learn how to communicate with my colleague who's got a disability, my KRA and my appraisal result at the end of the year will get worse. So it's steps like these where, let's say, founders want to do something, but how do I put it all across the work stream, or how do I put it all across students? It's almost like a two-way process. Make material for able-bodied folks, or make entrepreneurship products for able-bodied folks accessible to those with disability, and the reverse. Get people with ability to understand what it's like, so you don't look at it as a different audience. So Atul, that's my immediate response. I don't know if there are direct ones where people can learn with that, but I feel like there are lots of opportunities where people can go with an interest area and create livelihood opportunities for themselves in tier 3, tier 4, wherever they are. So restaurants, clothing, experience places. These are the first 3 or 4 which come to my mind.
Fantastic. Sangeeta has just posted on the chat group saying that she would like to know where this Nighty sari is being provided for. She'd like to know more. Even I would like to know more.
Not for me. I wear my sari very well. But I'm very interested in fashion because the whole idea that PVR pursued was look at the business case in amongst diversity. And frankly, I think a lot of brands are missing the bus by not actually catering to diverse audiences, and thereby actually missing out on revenue that could come from specifically diverse groups of people.
Yeah, that's a point. Yeah, major point you make. Fantastic. Yeah. Shiv, I just like to point out that what we have in Sarthak, we've created this mobile app, which has already on some 40,000 odd people and growing further. And these are people. So the mobile app, our main aim is to be able to reach every single person with a disability in any nook and corner of India, and let them know what their rights are, what kind of schemes are available, what kind of training opportunities are there, what kind of job opportunities there, and even matrimonial alliances. Where does a person with disability go and find a life partner? And why not the entire pan-India being a place you can look for one? So in that app, we'd like to, let's say, provide curriculum, whether it's content that's made by you or made by any other company. In fact, the people who provided us this LMS is StratBeans, and they are good at making content itself. So if we can, let's say, make it more video and say audible content, let's say, and especially for entrepreneurs, because the reason I'm saying entrepreneurs, because I haven't seen anything come across on that front, then it will be a very big plus for them. I don't expect many people to become entrepreneurs, but at least they get savvy. Their minds start thinking, look, here is a space that I can work in, and maybe I can make it grow bigger. On the other hand, in GEM, which is a government e-marketplace, what they have done is they've created a separate page for people with disabilities, products made by them. Because they are not making products in hundreds and thousands and all. They might have made only 5, or they might have made only 10. And these are very good products which you can, let's say, gift as Diwali items or maybe New Year's items, So they'll get lost in the way, like say, if you were to look up Amazon, you can't find a person with disabilities here. But here, there's a separate page for that. And you can list your product, even no matter how small the inventory you might be having. So that way, I was just wondering if there is a scope to be able to integrate with whatever you guys are doing and using technology as an enabler to be able to reaching out to these people. So that is something worth considering. Maybe not right now, but you can have a look at it later.
For sure, Atul. I mean, that's definitely part of the plans, and I've shared that with our Netherlands leadership as well. That we must be able to partner with this. And honestly, like I was thinking of it the other way, where it was almost like within the Abilympics, is there a chance that you can pivot it in some form where there's an entrepreneurship component over there as well, right? Where it's like a competition, it leads to seed funding. Because at the end of the day, a lot of them will meet with that element. But those, of course, long-term chats that we'll continue with you and the Sarthak team.
Okay, fantastic. So Sangeeta, back to you. I'm always fascinated with what you told me last time around on how the PVR people are working with movies being, let's say, accessible to people with disabilities, besides the movie seat also, because that's one grouse that I used to have. My father-in-law was wheelchair bound, but to get him a seat, I mean, the only seat that was available was on the top right-hand corner next to the exit gate, at the back of the hall itself, and for that is you have to go one up and come down. There was a bit of an exercise one has to do. So you had mentioned about how you can stream on your mobile phone, etc. So tell us more about it. This is kind of fascinating here. And we will try and build some of that into a global resource center and how that can be done also. That would be great to, you get some mileage also out of it, and it helps the people come across.
So when I started in 2018, I told our CEO, Mr. Datta, that I don't know how to do it, okay? I'm going to learn on the job, and you got to bear with me. And PVR was, and the management were very, very supportive. They gave me a very, an open canvas to do my, hit and trial, and I actually did hit and trial. I started with something as basic as telling every cinema manager, you make somebody sit on a wheelchair and start right from the pickup or drop area or the parking and tell me whether your cinema is, where all you get stuck. So that was as basic as that. Of course, so there were three pieces to this, two pieces essentially. One was a piece that we controlled, which was physical access to our cinemas. The other piece for the hearing and the visually impaired was the piece that we had no control over. I will come to that later. The piece that we had control over, again, was bifurcated into two. Cinemas that were accessible, cinemas that were not accessible, existing cinemas, and cinemas that were being built. So, of course, cinemas that were being built, a process was rerouted so that when the layout gets signed off, I would also do a sign-off, whether a particular property is accessible or not accessible. There were a lot of constraints because the stage at which the design layout came to me was a stage that was almost near final. So we did a lot of back and forth because the structure that was coming from the builder itself was we found not accessible, and hence whatever was built on it turned out agar do levels pe hai to do levels pe hai, so lobby se upar aana padega. So all that was the thing, and then of course we started speaking to builders. So it was a gradual process, and gradually we've come to a stage where we are ensuring that at least one, either the exit or the entrance, is accessible for people with disabilities as far on wheelchairs. Then we come to hearing impaired and the visually impaired. So the hearing impaired piece was easier, which meant if you had subtitles, hearing impaired could overcome their disability. However, there's a very large group of avid moviegoers who don't like subtitles. They say that it distracts them, and we had ample evidence to prove, because then the footfalls would go down in shows that were subtitled. Nevertheless, what we did was we said, okay, let's look at geographies and let's look at time slots. So let's make sure that every geography has at least one show playing in a particular time slot. So all prominent cinemas in a particular geography would have at least one show in a day that would be subtitled. And that would, so what became very important was discoverability, both for the physical access. So if I'm booking a ticket and I have somebody on a wheelchair who's going with me, I would look for an accessible cinema. So the first level icon would be at the cinema level. Then at the cinema level also, it's not necessary that all 100% Audis would be accessible. Then we would mark the Audis, the shows that were accessible. Once you go into that and you select your seats, you need to select. So those were also marked. Are also marked, and an accessible seat and a companion seat is blocked. And when a person tries to book it, it gives you a pop-up which asks you if you're on a wheelchair, only then book this seat. Or if a person tries to book the companion seat, it says this is a companion seat for the person accompanying a person on a wheelchair. Please only book it if you are accompanying a person on the wheelchair. Now, there have been cases where people have flouted it and gone and booked it also. In that situation, what happens is that the cinema manager is at liberty to be able to remove the person from that. We've already given an upfront message saying that this is not for people who are not on a wheelchair. Last but not the least, if there's a house full and the seat has not been booked by a person with disability till half an hour before the show, then the cinema manager is the only person who has the liberty to release that for able-bodied person. So that's as far as the physical disabilities are concerned. When it came to hearing, of course, similar thing, we marked the subtitled shows. Now the big elephant in the room was visually impaired, because no film, even Western films that actually came with audio description, these files used to be dropped for India. When I went to Universal, Disney, and a few others, I asked them, I said, listen, you all have accessible content. Why don't you all get those files into India? Because I understood that the Dolby format has track 7 and 8 dedicated to the visually impaired and the hearing impaired. But the files used to be dropped because the understanding was India doesn't need it, because India doesn't have the facilities. So I, of course, started with the obvious thing to see what technologies are used in US and Europe. And I realized that they were using these cumbersome, equipment, headphones for the audio description, and special glasses for subtitles. And of course, that meant, it meant the CapEx, which the company was ready to work on. Second hurdle was that the ministry did not recognize them as assistive equipment. Therefore, the GST that it attracted was not 5%, was what cinema equipment attracts. They did not even know that there were equipment that there was anything called assistive equipment for cinema. So that would have been another thing. Although I did go that route as well. I went to the ministry to tell them that I can do a demo for you, and I organized demos, and I kept waiting for them to give me dates, and it didn't happen. And then I came across this technology person from MIT who had an app called Excel Cinema, and I'd also heard of some of these apps across the world. One was in US, one was in Switzerland. So because I did so much of research. And then I realized that Excel Cinema did exactly what these guys did. So, and it was brilliant. I tested it out across, we could only test it out on films that they themselves or Saksham had audio described, and it worked brilliantly. So, of course, we tried to go to producers. Producers promised us, yes, we'll do it, and then it never happened. So anyways, long and short of it all was the only movies that got audio described were either the ones that Saksham did or Excel Cinema did themselves. However, we continued to do a lot of public advocacy. We went to Bhavar Singh Gahlot. We went to this gentleman who was the INB minister before Anurag Thakur. And finally, after much deliberation, after repeated visits and repeated representations, March 16th, there was a circular that says all films that are released in more than one language, which means big budget films, will have to have, within 6 months, will make sure that the audio description and captioning is there in the films. So battle won. And so Shrikant, the movie was much rejoiced at PVR because we'd worked so hard to make this happen. And also it was on the life of a visually impaired person. So we did first day, first show at 99 and across the country, just to commemorate the efforts that went in to make this happen. So that's what's been done. The smaller piece was that we realized that there was a section of people with disabilities, the autistic and the people with cerebral palsy, who needed a completely different experience, where they needed lights to be left on and the ambience, the sound to be lowered, and they can't sit still for very long, so to be allowed to move around. These shows we flipped around. We said these are shows that are there. Anybody can come for them, but they are centered around people with intellectual disabilities, particularly autistic, and you can't crib about them moving around or the light being on, etc., etc. You got to accommodate now. So we flipped the entire model around. So that's where I say that it's an education of society that is required, that we need to now come to, where we can mainstream disability and not look at it and gawk at it as if. So I got very irritated. I was traveling, coming back from Bombay, and I was walking back in T3, and you know how much one has to walk in T3. Mm-hmm. So this lady who was driving the golf cart, madam. So I looked back. आप वहाँ बैठ जाइए if you please, and आपको मैं वहाँ से some भेजती हूँ or some I don't know. I said I don't need it. First time, very nicely. No, something, she went on and on about it. Yeah. So point is that we also need to understand that we can't get into people's faces. If if a person thinks they can manage it, let them manage it. That's how they live their life. We can't tell them how, I can't go and tell somebody else, oh, well, you should be sitting on a wheelchair or you should be sitting on a golf cart. And I never use these, by the way.
Fantastic. You've got a great story to inspire people, and you should you're a mass media expert. You should do that. You should reach out to a lot of people.
Yeah, I've been thinking of starting a podcast actually.
Yeah, sure. Do that very much. So, Tejaswita, are there any questions around from the YouTube channel or anybody else?
No, sir, we don't have any questions.
Okay, so we'll just kind of wind up for what we have at hand. So, Shiv, one thing that you would like to do to popularize or to make more people come across Sarthak and help people who may have a disability, and how do we reach out to them? Or any ideas, anything?
Maybe you can tie up with some of the mainstream internship organizations and get young people in. I feel like maybe there should be a separate page on a Let's Intern or something like that, and put it over there itself. Possibly, like, I have a lot of faith in what young people can do, and I feel if you start from there, lots of things will change. So that would be my number one thought process, suggestion, and target for us to go after.
Well, that's a very good idea. In fact, we got this Rozgar Sarthi, but that's more for people wanting jobs. But then you said interns also. That's something we can think about, definitely. And yes, I do believe, I feel quite outdated with Gen Z around the place. Those guys can come up with some very bizarre solutions, which fascinate me really. And so, yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you for that. And Sangeeta ji, what is it that you'd like to do, especially because you're a mass media expert yourself, and you're working in an organization which also caters to very mass media people, really. So, I for one, this idea just came to me just while talking. You have these disability toilets there. Can something be put inside those which can tell them about, it's not about Sarthak, but like the assisted devices that are available in Sarthak, some photographs, etc., and a phone number to contact. So from there, the
We can do
discussion can go on.
I'll speak to the operations people here. I don't think that should be a problem at all. I'm sure we can do that because there are 66% of our cinemas are accessible. So 66% is a large number because 373, it's about 200 plus cinemas. So surely, I mean, that's a very targeted communication that can happen. And after all, Sarthak is our partner, and I think we hired this lovely boy who actually was taken on. He had just completed his BBA, and he had no experience, but he was taken on as ESP, and is very happy about that. But then the HR heads gawked at it, and he said, "Why? I mean, we would take a BBA as a duty officer, so why are we?" And I didn't realize that had happened. So before I could come to know, he objected to it, and he was within 15 days he got a letter as duty officer, and he's doing very well. And of course, we need to. There's a very small number. There's about 20. I don't know whether that includes me or not, by the way. There's one transgender we have as well. He's in the kitchen, and they are in the kitchen. Sorry, and I need to scale that up as well. So
yeah, that's what I thought. How do we reach to a large mass of people outside? And you being one, very everybody wants to entertainment. Of course, maybe the footfall towards movies has gone a little down because of the OTT channels, etc. But still, you remain the main contact with the outside world. I mean, Shrikant, as a movie, has done very well. Whatever I've heard people talk about it, this is a must-see kind of a movie.
oh yes, if you haven't, please see it.
Yeah, I haven't. I'd like to go for it. Yes.
And then again, you'll see that the same thing. I mean, the way he steers his life to normalcy is something that comes out very loud and clear there. So you cannot be using a crutch. If you continue using a crutch, you're not going to go far. And I don't mean a physical crutch. I mean the crutch here.
That's well said. Very well said. Well, thank you very much. I think I will wind up now because we're just in time. And I hope if there are any questions that you'd like to pose, great. Otherwise, we'll wind up the session now. And thanks for coming.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Lovely talking to you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.